you guys for coming. We're going to get started. So my name is Basel, and we have Glean's co-founder, Tony Gentilcore. Today we're going to be talking about the future of SaaS. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, could you tell me a little bit about your background, the origin story of Glean, and how the product has evolved?
Yeah, that's great. It's nice to be here. This is a beautiful, beautiful building. Good to see everybody. I had a couple nice meetings, like interactions before this. Let me see. So Glean, who do we have in here? Or do we have any folks that are Glean customers? I know I talked to at least one. So pretty new to Glean then. So we started in 2019. And my background, I spent about 10 years at Google, about half of that on the web search, and then about half of that on the Chrome team. I started a team there called the Chrome Speed team, all about making the browser fast. There, I met Arvind Jain, who's Glean's CEO, and he was a distinguished engineer. He was working on making the whole web faster and all of Google faster. And we worked together, in that capacity quite a bit. He tried to take me with him when he left. He left Google. I think he left around 11 or 12, and wasn't quite ready to leave yet at that time. But he started a company called Rubrik. And anybody familiar with Rubrik here? Yeah, so a lot more. So Rubrik, as you know, connects to all of your SaaS apps, all of your data, does backup, disaster recovery. They do more now, but at the time that was kind of the core thing. And through that, he kind of identified this big customer pain point, which is like, hey, we can't find anything across our companies. Like you've backed up all the information. Can't you do something useful with it? And so around that time, I'd since left Google, done another little startup. We were going to try to do some social good. That didn't work out. We returned a little bit of money to investors. I could talk about that, afterwards, maybe if that's interesting. But we had this idea that you should know what your company knows instantly, and we wanted to approach that differently. And we're thinking about the way Google got started, and Google when they got started, I don't think it's well known now. But it was really like, hey, search on the web is solved. There's already Alta Vista, it works good. There's ads. Larry and Sergey, as we know, like it's Valley Lore now. They have PageRank or the back rub and said it's just this really simple idea. The number of links to a page is how relevant that is. You do more relevant results, and now the rest is history, like one of the largest companies in the world, obviously. And we said, what's the equivalent of that for the enterprise? And meanwhile, our investors, they said, "Hey, Arvind, here's a blank check," because of his reputation and what he had done before. But they were also saying, "Yeah, here's a check, but like work on anything except enterprise search. Like it's dead. People have tried this, all this other stuff." But we were thinking, no, we can do. There's actually a ton of signals in the enterprise. There's a ton of ways that we can know from all the activity, from all the links about, hey, was this document shared in this Slack channel that you're in? We started to think, hey, we could really start to build a graph about who works with whom, about what's relevant, about what's canonical, what's deprecated, what's not only like globally on those things, but maybe there's an account executive in Tokyo that has an entirely different mental model of the company from a software engineer in San Francisco. And when people ask things or need to know things, they need to know very different things. So we just set out saying, hey, we want to solve that one problem, and we got going. We had one of Meta or Facebook's original tech leads of the Facebook news feed, Vish, and we had also a guy named Piyush who went on to form another startup, Piyush Pradlaka, called Ida. And he was one of the early tech leads on Google search ranking, and we just said, hey, let's just focus on this problem. Let's build Google for your enterprise. I think back in the 90s, one of the HP execs said it really well. Like, if my company only knew what my company knows, we'd be 10 times as productive. And that was kind of maybe I'll pause there for a minute, because that was kind of how we got up to like 2019 origin. Why did we start Glean?
Was it just a total coincidence that GPT-2 was launched in 2019?
It was a coincidence, GPT-2. It was a coincidence in that we thought this was a really big problem. I think we always had this idea that it's not 10 blue links. So I remember that very first summer, and we started out in Kleiner Perkins' basement on Sand Hill Road, and we were working there. We got an intern the very first summer, and we had him working on a Slack bot that was trying to bring direct answers. But at the time, we were using models like BERT, things that are. I think there was a time when that was considered a large language model, and now you would definitely call that an SLM now these days. But it was a coincidence with GPT-2, and it wasn't really until we saw the power of ChatGPT coming out and the rapid adoption that I think like maybe there was really a large change in terms of how we were approaching things.
So what was that change in terms of how you were approaching things?
Yeah, I mean, so we had this thing and it was working really well for humans to find what they needed, but the vision was always more. And at that point we realized, like as soon as that was out, that like, okay, the tech is here. So GPT-2, the tech wasn't really ready yet. It wasn't until that initial ChatGPT launch that I think it was there. And I think we found ourselves like, it was business was good. Like we definitely had good traction and things like that, but not like great. But it was that was a real inflection point where I think any startup, those are thinking about this, it's like you need to have a little bit of luck and a little bit of tailwinds. Like you definitely need to. Somebody asked me once, like, is it all like execution or is it all luck? And it's like, no, it's not one or the other. You actually need both. And so I feel like we found ourselves in this really fortunate position where LLMs, they're reasoning engines. They're like human brains, right? Like human brains are like the pinnacle computer in the world, like the best compute thing, but which is amazing. Like we're so smart, but we're also like really dumb. Like we forget where our keys were. We hallucinate. We have biases. We get all kinds of things wrong, and humans need context. We need like Google search. I'm kind of using that as an analogy of what it's like when you research and you look something up versus when you just go off the top of the head. And that's kind of the same for an LLM. So we found ourselves in that position where we had built exactly what you need to have an LLM like give you the answers that are grounded, that are cited, that aren't hallucinated.
So early on, as a customer, like what was I using Glean for? Like what was like from start to end? Let's say like I start my day. What am I using Glean for? Like early on.
Yeah, so early on, so let's say you're in the 10 blue link era, or you're in the basic chatbot era. This is you connect whatever your chat and communications are, be it Microsoft Teams or Slack or email, whether it's Gmail or Outlook or whatever ecosystem. You connect your code base, you connect GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, whatever you're using there. You connect all of your doc systems, Office or G Suite. You connect your ticketing systems, Zendesk, Jira, whatever else, your CRMs like Salesforce. It goes on and on. Like today, it's like close to I think 275 or something different connectors that we index really well. So you connect all these as a business, and you're basically like able to quickly find things like in the same way that you would find something in your personal life on the public web. You're finding those things across your company's internal knowledge. And so it was a day-to-day productivity tool. Like at the time, it was primarily a Chrome extension that acted as your new tab page. You open it up, and it's like you're searching across your company.
Okay, so how, like early on, how were you measuring how accurately it was pulling in the correct information?
Oh yeah, Evals. That's a good question. So, well, we actually took a lot of inspiration from how Google Search worked. So there you measure all the things around every interaction that you can from the page. Like, did how much did they scroll? What was their dwell time? What did they click? And then when they get to the ultimate destination, is that a good click or a bad click? And we would base that on like dwell time. Did they stay there for a long time, or did they come back? Did they refine the query again, or did they stay on the query? And so we would build these evaluation sets. And it was actually interesting for us. It was a little bit different. I remember when I first started at Google, you walk in and there's this giant board on the wall that maybe people have seen and stuff like that. That's like every live query that's happening. They're just scrolling through the wall. Where it's all public and we could look at everything. But here we have really sensitive customers, and we don't always have access to those things. So it was kind of a different problem where we as engineers couldn't directly go in and like read all that information. It's way too sensitive, and so from that point we had to develop some interesting things that would let us like say, okay, maybe I'm going to make a shadow ranking experiment, or like what if things were, we have some hypothesis about what this was. Let me run this. It will run within the environment. I'll get the results back and look at that. So eval was actually a big challenge. I think eval only gets harder as we move forward into the modern age, where you're taking actions, you're writing agents, things like that. I feel like it's so much harder. I mean, by one, like at least in the 10 blue link era, you always had a click. You always knew like if they were getting value, they were clicking. But now most things you're just reading. And so I think there's entirely new challenges where, there's a couple ways around that, shares and copies, and you can still look at dwell time and kind of understand some things. But I think largely eval is getting even harder these days.
So I guess early on it was a search product. You just alluded to, I guess now you guys are building agents as well, or helping companies build their own agents. Could you talk about that? Like, when did you guys start doing that?
Yeah, I think so. That was probably maybe it was a year later than like kind of the really that initial like get to chatbot, but
like 2020.
I felt like at this point when LLMs got better at reasoning. What was the era here? Maybe like 4.1 was the time when you can actually do like some reasoning to take an action based on that. It kind of varies based on how complex that was, but it turns out like if you're going to take an action, if you're going to actually do some work, it's like that much more important to have the right context that you're acting on, that you're not not hallucinating, not making those things up. So we found ourselves in a valuable position there as well too, as it progressed. And I kind of look at it as there was a time when it was experimental, and now we've moved into the thing where it's like all scale, it's governance. I don't know what you were going to ask next, but now it's cost. Now tokenomics is the whole thing. It's not like, is this possible, but is this affordable? Is a trade-off there? Is there high ROI? These are really the questions. I feel like we're out of the experimentation stage, the can this work thing, and to how do you scale this?
When you knew that agents, hey, like these things can actually be valuable for companies, like what were some of those use cases that you thought companies would use the agents for?
Yeah, I guess maybe like some of our initial conceptions and like what actually gets used, maybe it varied a little bit. I guess initially I think we were thinking that it was a little bit more deterministic. You kind of tell it what to do, a little more like workflow based, and for instance, this ticket comes in, you're going to take this context, you're going to run some prompt against that ticket, try to resolve it. Now you're going to respond back with a potential solution or next step. But that's very much like a workflow. And I think we had the hypothesis that agents were going to look like that. Today, and I like to talk a little bit about like what I see directly, like what we actually use internally and what works really well. And I'd say the most valuable agent for us now is a on-call shepherd. We call it support shepherd, or it's really an on-call resolution bot. or agent, I should say. But this thing, it's just kind of, you can think of it like a claw. It's just kind of free in Slack with the context and everything. And these escalations come in, or these outages, or these issues. And now we're seeing the surprising behaviors, the behaviors that we didn't expect, which I think is when that's when you know it's working really well. So instead of just like, hey, I'm gonna try to solve this and suggest a resolution, it's like, oh, this person hasn't responded to the tag in 15 minutes. I should actually tag their manager now. And like, it's figuring out things with Glean. It's like connected to the org chart and things like that. And so it's able to kind of start to make those inferences. And we haven't actually released this thing yet because we're really still figuring out like when does it have the quality that we're happy with. We want to make sure it works really well, that it really generalizes, it's not annoying people. It's been fun seeing the reception go from, I would say, internal detractors and doubters to like people just love it now. And it's like saving a lot of time. But here we're kind of on that on-call agent is a big one. TPM is another one that we think, a technical program manager is another one that we think benefits a lot from having a lot of organizational context. This involves, really understanding trade-offs, really understanding roles and projects and people and lots of data sources, and also kind of like nudging things forward, knowing when to ping, who to ping, those sorts of things. And then a third one we're thinking about is executive assistant. It's very much the same sorts of, you need every piece of context to do executive assistant work. So these are some of the things that we're seeing now are like way more powerful than hey, just like reply on a ticket. Not that that's not valuable too. I mean, there's a ton of deterministic cases where you do want that repeatability and you want the guardrails, but I'm really excited about the much more open agentic things now.
Yeah, it sounds like since founding that it's been up and to the right. I'm assuming that's not the case, that there's probably some things that maybe you guys got wrong. Like, what are some of those things that maybe you look back and you say, oh, like that was really dumb, why were we doing that?
That's a great question. So if I look back, one of the main things I think is like not betting against the models getting better and better and better. So when I even was talking about this with the agent thing, where we thought at certain points in time, hey, the reasoning isn't quite there yet. We should build a lot around workflows and things like that. And then, come 6 months later or 9 months later, it's like, hey, the reasoning is so good that anything that you come up with as a human that's like a deterministic workflow, you're actually limiting yourself more. And so kind of the guardrails and what you want to encode it as a human, I think changed really quickly. So I guess the recommendation would be like, make sure, like don't build for the model of today, like try to extrapolate that forward 6 months, 9 months, a year. It's really hard to extrapolate into the future, but we don't actually know the rate of change and what's going to happen. But I think we can all assume more and more powerful. And so I think when building, like it takes time to get things to market and things like that, and always predicting, looking where the puck is going, not where it is.
So what would you say, where is the puck going? Like, what are the agents bad at right now that you think in a year from now, hey, like, they're going to probably be pretty good at that?
Yeah, I mean, I could give like trite cliche, like, hey, it's going to be this much more powerful and stuff like that. But like, when you say what are agents bad at now, it's actually interesting. We did this. If you look up later this Work AI index that we released, a big study last week. The takeaway is that like some of the problems right now are what I would call like, or what the report calls like bot sitting and then bot shitting. I don't know if we're allowed to say shitting, but the bot sitting is like, we were just looking across productivity and surveying a lot of enterprises and things like that. And if we just limit to personal productivity level, average are coming back saying, hey, we're saving about 11 hours a week per employee at a personal productivity layer. And this isn't with Glean. This is like asking them about AI in general, right? This is a industry survey, not like a Glean survey, performed by us, but not about our product. And however, with that, they said, hey, now we're spending an additional 6 hours a week just kind of re-prompting, like reworking with this, like reviewing the output, this other things, and we call this we call this like bot sitting now, where like some of the I think people maybe. I mean, certainly as a builder, I feel like some of the fun parts are gone, and now some of this is like, it's not quite the Matrix yet, where we're plugged in as a battery, and but we're definitely doing a little more rote work on just babysitting these things, and so I think there's a lot to build around kind of the harnesses and how we interact with these, and in the productionization of them, the reliability, the verifiability and trustability, observability. All of these things, I think, is a big thing that needs to improve on agents, so that they're actually just like fire and forget, and you're not spending all your time just like babysitting them instead of doing it yourself. So that's one thing. The bot shitting is actually worse, which is when you're just producing AI slop. With it, and I think I've started. This is a problem where I think everybody thinks like AI, or not everybody. I think maybe there's a trend, or some people think that AI is just automatically everybody is doing better work, but I look at it more as a force multiplier, and that force can be a force for good or a force for bad. Like if you have good taste, you have good judgment, those sort of things, like that's multiplied. If you have bad taste, bad judgment, that sort of thing is multiplied. And so I started, I'll switch back from like what people were reporting about the consequences of this, and just talk myself personally. I'm now getting and reading more documents than ever in my life, and half the time, like I'll poke at the thing and I'll ask about this, and they're like, oh, well, I didn't actually mean that part. Like the LLM just wrote that, right? And I think, yeah, everybody's laughing. So like, I think we all have this, and I'm like, well, don't send it to me then. Like, don't make me review it for you. Like, you still need to like, these are your tools. I compare it like if you were a lumberjack and you're really good at using your handsaw, and all of a sudden one day you get a chainsaw and you start like cutting down the wrong trees. You don't say like, it wasn't me, the chainsaw did it. It's like, no, that's your tool. You're expected to be a master of it, to learn to use it well. One of the more extreme examples I did hear from a customer. This is a very AI forward startup, to the point where they were telling me that they have, there's the token maxers out there using $10,000 or $20,000 a month kind of thing, which I've heard a lot for engineers. Like, we have that for engineers, everybody does. But they were saying, hey, we've got business users in that category of spend per month in a good way, and they're doing all that. But they actually have a rule in their company. They're that AI forward. They have a rule: no AI writing. All documents must be written by humans. And I thought that was really interesting. We haven't applied that internally ourselves yet. But I am starting to see, judgment matters, taste matters, and I think there will be a little bit of a trend or a resurgence of like, what sort of things should you do? Not just like token max everything, but what makes sense for you to do, and what not. And when I think the other thing, like making sure folks on your team and things like that understand that if they're putting out AI output, that's still their work product. Like, it's still their reputation on the line. Like, when I see as an engineer, and maybe I see a 3,000 line vibe coded PR, and there's all these problems in it and things like that. It's like, well, you can't just say that was AI. Like, that's you're producing it. You can't like put the burden on somebody else. So I think, there's a really long-winded answer to like, what are agents bad at? But, right now it's like, making sure the human judgment is there, that you're applying your tastes, and then also making sure that we're not just spending all of our time on the rote, like babysitting work on them as well too.
So are you limiting the amount of tokens, or I guess like the cost for engineers to use LLMs? Or is it unlimited budget?
This is a really interesting one. I think every company in the world is struggling with this right now, and it's actually really exciting to me. I spent like there was this real push to tell everybody use this as much as possible, and in fact, like the only metric that companies really had was spend for a while. Like how much is everybody wanted like your employees to be AI forward. You wanted them to use it a lot, and then you assume that, well, the only way I can tell that they're using it is how much they spend. So there's this real push for this, and now it is out of control everywhere. Like every enterprise I talk to, every time I sit down with like a CTO or CIO or something, they're like, actually this was like back in April, they would say, we've like 2x'd our planned token budget for the whole year, like, and we're only a quarter in. And so I think that like flipped so hard, where we pushed so hard for it, and then all of a sudden it was out of hand. And now we're trying to say, look, we don't want to hurt anybody's productivity. We want everybody to use this as much as possible, but now we need to make sure the ROI is there. And what I've seen is that you want to look for waste. Like you want to make sure. So we went through our own AI spend and actually found, and so it's out of control. Like at Glean internally, it's out of control. I won't say numbers, but like a good portion of it was automated agents that were running in the background. And when we actually audited this thing and looked through it, there were so many of them that could just be turned off. Like they didn't actually need to be there. And so this is one thing that we're, as a product, like we had to build for ourselves to make sure the observability was there, and that you can actually see how much these are, well, how much they're running, how much they're consuming, and we're starting to work on kind of org level budgets for these things as well too, that these can be controlled. But the other thing on the personal side, the other thing we found is that everybody wants the best, right? Like your time is valuable. You don't want to put up with a Sonnet response. You want a Opus response or whatever. So I think everybody now just sets it and forgets it at 4.8. But not everything needs that. Like it literally sometimes it's like rebase my PR and like that doesn't need 4.8, right? Like go back to auto mode or whatever for that query. And I think a lot of the tools and stuff, they're at the point where they're saying like, all right, what is our tool to control spend is to set hard caps. But a hard cap, in my opinion, doesn't work because it doesn't change behavior. Like you hit your hard cap on the 20th of the month, and then if your admin doesn't approve like raising that cap, like you may as well just go home or take vacation for the last 10 days of the month, right? And so there's really no option. Like they have to keep upping your cap. So what we're doing instead, we're now, you ask about the evolution of Glean. Really the context layer has turned a lot more into an MCP gateway, and now we're very model agnostic across all the families, and then all the open ones as well too. We're exposing that as a LLM gateway that you can use across your coding tools, but then across Glean as well too. Like hook these up to whatever tool and Glean. But what we're finding is actually effective is more of the limits on the expensive models that are much more granular, like throttles and daily limits that change behavior. It's as simple as like, hey, you're done with Opus for an hour. Try go back to Sonnet a little bit and then try again. Try again in an hour. Like it sounds simple, but I think if you're, I think there are actually incentive issues. Like if you're a company and your whole business model is based on inferencing, like you may not actually want to change behavior. The way we've been approaching it, what we've seen effectively internally and stuff is going about those ways to actually change behavior so that people are being thoughtful about what they're using and have real-time feedback. I look at it more like how your parents probably told you as a kid, like, turn the light off when you leave the room, it costs electricity. And I think like nobody's been told yet, like turn Opus off when you don't need it.
I feel like every week there's just new stuff coming out all the time. There's like MCP skills, like subagents, blah, blah, blah. How do you guys decide that, hey, like this is something that we should look into, and hey, like just, that's noise. Let's not like waste time looking into, agent teams and blah, 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 whatever. Like whatever the new thing of the week is.
For us as a company, we try everything. And we, I don't know that this is what I would encourage for everybody to just have like AI sprawl, but I do see it a lot. I think AI sprawl is this huge problem. Shadow AI, I should say, and like AI sprawl. But as a company that's building this, like we really have to use everything. So we use it, understand it, all of those things, and then you get a feel really quickly when you're in the heat of it. And like skills are not noise. They're like an insanely powerful primitive that I don't think that'd be controversial right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's switch to the business mode. So on Twitter, I feel like there's a lot of people saying that, hey, there's no point in building any new product because the AI labs are just going to eat you in a couple months. Like, what do you think about that?
No point in building a product. I think it's important to think about the fundamental value that you're adding. I do think that, we've already seen it, like certain things that are, the pejorative is a wrapper, we call it a wrapper company is like the pejorative way to put it. And then I don't think anybody would say like, oh, this is a wrapper. But I do think it's important to think about the core value, the core moat. And I can't say what that is for every company. For us, I think we're just finding again and again and again how much value there is in a context layer that's connected across, like at Glean, a context layer that's connected across everything at your company. We're finding that with the tokenomics thing again here, like MCP is a pretty great it's a pretty great trick for getting connectivity that works to a certain degree. However, like I think the best part about MCP it would be if you're the one selling tokens. Like MCP is great if you're selling tokens. I say that because the way it works is like, okay, so you're pulling on all this context through it, but you're using like fundamentally bad retrieval and bad search. And so what does that mean? You might have to, like if there's a certain thing you're trying to see, you might the LLM itself might have to come up with all the synonyms, all the stems, and like issue multiple queries. So you might say like, oh, I need to search 10 different ways in this system. You may have to search across 10 different systems because you don't know where it is. And then for each one, like the results retrieved may not be good. So you have to retrieve a large page of results. And it's great if you want to fill up your million token context window and you're happy to pay for those million input tokens, like you're going to get it done. We released some benchmarks recently, but we're seeing something like less than a third of the token usage on across our query set just by having like at the same quality level, the same model, just a third of the token usage from having like the right context instead of having to stab around in the dark for it. And well, that's a long answer to, your original question, which was like, what do you think about not building anything anymore? And I was just talking a little bit about, I think for us, that's a context layer. There's a lot of benefits to this. I think there's a lot of things that are not possible without we talked about the efficiencies of it, but there's also like, you get to a certain point, you're hitting rate limits and things like that as well too. So that's what we're considering, or what we're considering right now. And I think it's worth just asking what is the next step on this? We talked a little bit about seeing where the puck is going.
I remembered what I was going to ask before, and it's kind of related. So how do you guys think about training your own models for, using in the Glean product?
Yeah, training your own models. This has changed. It's changed back and forth. This was another thing. I was almost going to say this when you were asking about something I regretted. So there was a time where we took one stab at fine-tuning, and I remember we spent all this money. We got it to a certain point. It was better than the current model generation. And then by the time we got it out there, the next model generation came out, and the non-fine-tuned one was better. However, open source has completely changed that now. And what we're seeing now with Nemotron from NVIDIA especially, but also the Chinese ones are more controversial in an enterprise standpoint, but also GLM and Kimi and stuff are insane quality-wise. And so the approach we took, we actually now, the majority, by default, the majority of Glean traffic is using model that we call Waldo. We named it, it's about searching or finding, right? You find Waldo on the page. You might have to be a little older to remember who the red and white stripe guy is. But that's a fine-tuned version of Nemotron. And we fine-tuned it on one principle only, is know what you can handle and know when to escalate. And so the whole name of the game here is run a bunch of the workload at a tenth of the cost of the larger models, but know as soon as we get to the point that we're with Glean, you can do all the co-working things as well too, slide decks or iterate on a doc or take actions and things like that. And as soon as we get into those sorts of things, it's well, yeah, if you're making a live interactive dashboard that's querying Salesforce and Zendesk and all this other stuff, yeah, max it out. That's when you call Opus, or if Fable ever comes back, call that one. But for us now, fine tuning is the name of the game, and this is how you. This is. I think from a cost perspective, I'm super bullish on open source right now. It's kind of call the premium ones when you need them, but beyond that, there's when you're using a model that's the inferencing is done by a company that's not having to balance the other half of the balance sheet that was burnt on the pre-training with their inferencing margin. The margin is just the inferencing is just so much cheaper. It's literally order of magnitude. So very bullish on fine.
Why are enterprises not okay with using a Chinese open source model as a base? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think it's FUD. I think there's two things. I think largely it's this idea that it's not safe or something like that. But I think it boils down to two things. One is a misconception. I think that there really are people out there still who think Chinese model means Chinese. It means inferencing in China. They don't want their data to ingress. But so that one is easy to clear up. It's no, this is running on Bedrock or on Vertex or or Fireworks or whatever. That's easy. The second one, I think the other objection more comes from the public arena, which is hey, was this trained with something like the the Russian election interference thing, and was this trained with some intent like that, and yeah, maybe you care about that if you're running a social network or some public thing, but when you're taking the model and you're distilling it and you're and you're deciding whether the ticketing system to call is Jira or Zendesk or something, all of that stuff, even if you subscribe to that, and I'm not saying that I do, but even if you thought there was some malicious thing, it's just not there. And then, but we do still see that a lot where there's enterprises that say no Chinese models, we can't have that. But right now it's just kind of I don't think this is going to hold more than a couple months, because as soon as people see their token bill and then you tell them it's a tenth of the token, immediately, even if there were principles or something, they're out the window. It's the same as where when people say or we should take go back decades when people said buy American, and then but it's when Walmart is going to sell something at a tenth of the price, like you're going to Walmart, and I think the same thing happens to models. One interesting thing is actually like the national sovereignty, though. I think to me that's like the more interesting story of will there be a similar backlash against U.S. models in Europe and things like that? Maybe I shouldn't like get too geopolitical in my commentary, but I think that's where I've definitely ordered a little bit more popcorn for my watching of these events to unfold.
Also random, but I think back in 2024, apparently, like Sam Altman, like he named Glean as a company that their investors should not invest in. Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, I don't know. You tell me what it was about. I will say that we took it as very flattering at the time when I think they were 50x our size or 100x our size or something like that. And meanwhile, like one of the major players in the space is worried about our little startup to the point where they want to make sure nobody else invests in it. So I was happy, like to make somebody like that a little afraid of what we're doing.
All right, so let's switch to org structures. How has Glean changed the way that you run your org structures, maybe compared to companies that you've worked at previously? So is there like a difference in the org structure compared to previous companies you've worked at? Maybe like the teams are smaller, maybe, you don't need as many PMs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we haven't actually started changing our org structure, just transparently. I would say the roles have changed, the roles within this. And I say this all the time, but like really, really soon, there's not gonna be like product manager, product designer, product engineer. There's just gonna be product builder. I know that like even large companies like Google, I think has this as a new job track internally now. That they're experimenting with, and certainly now, like more so than ever, we've kind of switched to a model where we're doing a lot more V teams, a lot more virtual teams, and there we always want to name one DRI, one directly responsible individual. That way we don't get this like, hey, 3 people kind of blocked on each other and each responsible for the thing. And usually we take, sometimes it's the engineer that's the most senior, has the most clout, that sort of thing. And they're getting, of course they respect the product manager's opinion and the designer's opinion and things, but they're really the one responsible. And then sometimes it would be a product manager or designer. It kind of depends a little bit on the thing, but we're definitely seeing now all of our product designers are writing code, not directly, but they're making PRs, and then I would say more and more projects are going end to end with just an engineer. And there's no more like waterfall. Not that we ever did waterfall really, but now like that PRD stage and those designs, you just go straight to prototype. You see if it works, you dog food it internally, you build it, you see if the team loves it, and then you get it out. So I would say like org structure hasn't quite changed yet, but certainly functions roles and functions feel entirely different now.
I've heard a few people say like, oh, let's call these product builders, but I feel like there needs to be a sexier name.
I love calling myself a builder. I identify with the term a lot, but yeah, I don't know. So what did we have before? Manager, designer, and engineer. They're not particularly sexy. I don't know. It wasn't like I don't know. We could call it product rock star or something. But,
yeah, maybe. What do you think org structures are going to look like a couple years from now? Like a lot has changed just in the last 12 months. So what do you think they're going to look like, in a couple years?
I'm trying to think where org structures are going to go. I can foresee some change. The org thing, how people are going to relate, I'm not actually sure how that's going to go. There are some things I think will change. Like, the way we work on some time horizon, I feel like everything is voice driven. You work from wherever you are. You could be on a trail in the Sierras, and like with Starlink, you're fully connected and everything. You're talking, you're doing your work. You're able to interact with every system, like write code, like get whatever you want. And then what does that mean? What does that mean for the office? If you're using more and more voice, like office, I think starts to look a little bit more like maybe a business class lounge than a open row of desks, because actually like the open desk row is actually like not good for, like, it's actively not good if you're working in this way. But I think in this way, like, whatever screen you're nearby, be it like a small screen like this or a larger screen like that, I think it becomes about presentational for you, helping you understand the responses and the work that you're doing and that you're getting back. But I really think it becomes more human. It becomes more, we already have the, there's HCI, like human computer interface, but like we already have the best human to human interface. Like it's conversation, and then we use illustrations, we use graphs or charts or materials or things like that to help explain our ideas better. And I think that's a little more how we'll interact with computers in that way in the future. And I think it'll have a lot of implications. But where does that mean for teams and stuff like that? I think maybe it's just like, I think it's really hard to say like where they're going to go and how they're going to shape up. Like, there's kind of the doomer way of thinking of like there's no jobs left to do. I'm more of a maximalist of like, the ones I think are going to go far, the ones that say like, look, the pie is getting bigger. There's more things than ever before. I think that taste and judgment matter more than ever before. If I'm worried for one thing, it's I'm not sure how the bootstrapping is going to look for new grads. Like the things that LLMs are getting better and better and better are the things that look like entry level in your career, and then the things that are more and more valuable are the things that like you've learned from some mistakes and things like that. And I'm sure we'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll figure out like how do we train better? How do we, or like what, that there will be an adjustment. But that's the one I'm just trying to figure out is like, how does that start to shape up? Like how do you get to the point where you have the judgment and the experience to give the LLM? It's more like everybody's a manager, right? And a manager takes, a certain level of experience before you would give to that person. And so we'll have to figure it out.
By the way, I know we're basically at time. Do you have like an extra 10 minutes? I have like some other questions.
I have all night.
All right.
If
and then we'll go to audience questions after. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I guess my next question was, how do you think software engineering is going to evolve over the next few years? A lot of people that I've been talking to are saying, I mean, these are like really strong engineers, and they're saying, yeah, I haven't looked at a line of code in a couple months, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I like the software engineers who say I haven't written a line of code in months. The ones that say I haven't looked at a line of code in a couple of months, I don't really want on my team. And what I mean by that is there's vibe coding and there's AI coding, and I think that the same things that make a code base or an architecture or an API friendly to a human, that makes your code base maintainable and safe and quality, that's the same things that make it that way to an LLM too. Like they're basically reading that too. And like, if you have this spaghetti mess that was put together, like, yes, you could throw like many tokens and much reasoning at that thing, and it would probably get some result. But it's going to be way, way better if you have the same kind of APIs, encapsulation. You have the same the same good software engineering principles that make a code base good quality. I think also mean that like when LLM looks at like that, it can stay within a abstraction and not have to understand all the leaky abstractions through the code base to make the right decision and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think maybe this gets back to the bot shitting or the AI slop or whatever, where I still like there's a real place for vibe coding. Like there's a real place where you're prototyping or you have things like that. There's another stage where like that this is a big production system that many people have to work on and that is going to be around for a while. And I think code quality matters. And I just see all the time where it's like so easy for the LLM to go off the rails. I've seen it like, hey, there's a 1,000-line PR where it like changed all these call sites and everything and tried to do something at every call site. And then like a human looks at it who actually knows the code base and they're like, oh no, this is a one-line change at the function level, not at every call site level, and I just see those things and I really worry with I don't look at code anymore.
How much of your code base would you say is written by agents?
Like most. I mean, when I say that, like the bottleneck has shifted to reviewing the code, not writing the code. I think hand coding is not really a thing. It's just a different level of abstraction. I mean, I could just repeat and stress that, like, I think the reviewing and the understanding and the judgment on that is still absolutely essential.
So no code review agents?
Well, they kind of suffer from the same, like if it didn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, it can help, but like if it didn't figure out the pattern, like if one didn't figure out the pattern, then the one reviewing it, like why would it figure out the pattern? So, I mean, code review agents help. Like we use those as well too, and I am seeing the thing where like it found a missing security issue or something like that. Like there is the adversarial thing there, but yeah, I don't think it replaces like someone understanding this yet. I don't know. Maybe I should take my own advice and be like, hey, next year it's going to be better than anything we could ever possibly come up with. But we'll see how that unfolds.
All right. Last section, SaaSpocalypse. So Satya Nadella says that, hey, like any app that's just a CRUD database with some business logic, like that is going to be a dead company. Like, do you agree with that?
The SaaSpocalypse is real. It's real in the following way. 65 million years ago, there was an apocalypse, right? There was an asteroid that hit, wiped out all the dinosaurs, right? I mean, did it? Like, dinosaurs are one of the most successful species on the planet today, like birds. Like birds literally are dinosaurs. They're everywhere. Dinosaurs, they changed a lot. The point I'm trying to make is that it was a forcing function. The asteroid was a forcing function for rapid evolution at a pace that never, wasn't there. I mean, there were other extinction events like that too. But we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. Mammals wouldn't be here in the way that we are now if it wasn't for that. And so I think the SaaSpocalypse looks a little more like that. It's a big evolution. This is. It's going to look nothing like it looks today. I think strong systems of record, enforcing certain business logic, enforcing certain, there's a lot of things on compliance and auditability and, and connection to other things. And I think there will be strong need for systems of record, to go. But I think, what I was saying before about like working with your voice and generating UIs automatically, I think over time we'll there'll be a little bit less of like, oh, I have to navigate into the CRM and enter things myself and use that UI and stuff like that. So yeah, SaaSpocalypse is real, but it's an evolution. It's not SaaS Armageddon, I think.
So I guess one of those things that is changing a lot about SaaS is previously SaaS was on a priced on a per seat basis. And I think, is that how Glean is priced right now?
Yeah, we do a platform access fee or seat, that's still there. We want that per user, and that's actually where we capture a lot of our value. But then we do consumption on tokens, and that's where we pass it through. And I think everybody has to do that because that's the thing. You can scale this to any level. Like you can spin up as many agents as you want. It's just like fundamentally, it's a consumption-based product. It's not. It'd be like asking if the electricity for this building should be a seat-based. It's like, no, it matters like if you're running generators and refrigerators in here or just a couple light bulbs, right? Like, you know, and I think that's the way that's the way everything is now. So yeah, we charge by the token and but we try to just pass that through. And we want to make that as cheap as possible. We want to bring in the, you know, like I said, bring in the Waldos, use as much open source, like minimize the context. You know, we're trying to save that, like make it so you can use as much of it as possible and also govern it in the best way.
Some companies like Sierra and Decagon, they've been charging on resolved tickets. What do you think about that kind of pricing, like pricing on outcomes?
I don't think it's going to hold. And the reason I say that is it's kind of like, you know, the analogy I made, or the analogy I was thinking of is like, what if, take like Photoshop, if they were to say, what is the outcome of the thing you produce? Like, hey, you produced a billboard and it generated this amount of revenue. So like you have to pay us like commensurate to that marketing campaign. Like it just doesn't hold. You know, you would say like, no, there's like a fixed value, and I used it. And I think if you're charging outcomes, it's assuming that you're the only one who can get that outcome, and that, you know, I would say like at that point, like if I was being charged at like a level that's outcome based, and then I could like build it myself, but for way cheaper. And you were talking about how it's much easier to build things now and things like that. So I don't know. I'm not. You know, maybe I'll be wrong. Like if we do this chat again, you know, maybe in a year I'll come back and I'm totally wrong. I just don't see the durability of outcome based. It seems like it can always be undercut.
All right, cool. Well, that's all I had. So I think we can leave it to the audience for audience questions. We should get you guys a mic though, so I'll do that.
Hey, Tony, thanks so much for coming and speaking with us. You mentioned that people are still accountable for their work and their quality, right? Your reputation is attached to it, which totally makes sense. But I wonder if there is a new trend that is emerging where people are unable to keep up with AI-produced content or code. Like it's just hard to efficiently go through it and actually just spend the time reviewing it and being able to error catch, right? Like catch those errors. So do you think there needs to be another layer that it needs to sort of evolve, like a logic layer almost, that sits between the AI-produced content or code and use and essentially condenses that information like a chief of staff would for a president? Like,
yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the joke on this is that like I write 3 bullet points, I pay an LLM to convert it to a letter, and then somebody on the other end like pays an LLM to convert it down to 3 bullet points again. And I feel like, yeah, if I was selling tokens, I would really like that world. But you know, I kind of wonder, like, you know, like the company that said, hey, don't do AI writing, you know, should we just all say, hey, should we communicate in the 3 bullets again? And I totally hear what you're saying. But I'm not sure how it act. I think this is a thing like we're all as a society, as companies and things like that, going to have to figure out how we work with this in a sustainable way. But I'm not sure we all want to just like we want to like token max everything and build up inefficient layers on that. You know, it could be it might be unavoidable. You know, so yeah, we'll see.
thank you.
So for coding agents, Claude Code is heavily subsidized. Do you fear that the same sort of dynamic is going to play out for ChatGPT Enterprise? And how do you feel about positioning yourself against that?
Well, let me see. So for me, I don't feel positioned against it. I mean, so Glean is a like a user-facing product and a platform. A lot of our customers, they use Claude Cowork or Claude Code or ChatGPT Enterprise, and they hook up the Glean MCP gateway or LM gateway, and then we see like the cost benefits, the the quality improvements, things like that. So, when it comes to the like token subsidies and stuff like that, for me, like that's also what makes me so bullish. I talked a lot about open source, and for me, the durability is just really like at the end of the day, if you're doing all the pre-training and you're like incinerating cache on that side, like it forces you to have to do more on the right side. I was actually looking at it as, I saw the press too, where they said, hey, ChatGPT is going to like slash their prices, their model prices, right, to compete with Anthropic. And I saw that as a really, really good thing. So for me, the only AI future I don't want to live in is one where like one company controls the world like a monopolistic way. And as long as there's like healthy competition and there's back and forth and there's not like lock-in, then I'm gonna be like really happy with that. So I like the competition. I like the back and forth. To me, it means like there's that much more reason that now, a customer is gonna say like, oh gosh, we totally locked into Anthropic and everything, and now OpenAI is cheaper, and we want to use those models instead. And so I say like, okay, yeah, we've built the model agnostic layer, and switch workload over to this model, or whatever's like dial in the cost performance you want today or tomorrow, and don't like lock into one.
Hi, Get. I do have a question about context layers. Do you believe that context should be interoperable? Because like right now there's many company brains, second brains, everything is about context layers. But at the end, when I'm thinking about like enterprises, they already have like Databricks, snowflakes where the real data is. And for me, it's like for enterprises, they own the data, but context layers, it's not like, do you believe that enterprises will own the context as well as a derivative over the data? Like using like process mining techniques and like building this context.
Yeah, so when I say context layer, I should break it down a little bit. There's structured and there's unstructured data. I think Snowflake, Databricks, yeah, that's where the structured data lives, but I think the majority of the context is in unstructured data. And you look at all this stuff we talked about, communications and docs and things like that, those don't live in there. And this is when you're really understanding understanding how to optimize your business and be like much more productive. Like when I say context layer, it's really like the most powerful things come when you're blending the structured and the unstructured data. And then I believe very much that it should be interoperable and that companies should own this. So when we look at this as a layered system where we put, I'm not trying to do an ad, but I'll at least talk about how we do it. It's like each one of our customers, they own and they're a tenant. We let them pick their cloud. We support all the clouds, right? We Terraform into that. They own that. They can lock us out at any time. They can own the encryption keys, give that to us or not. They can use their LLM keys or our LLM keys. Like we don't care about that. We have our protect layer, which is really important for like finding overshared content. Once you do this, like all the time, like AI is coming for your data. If you have some like security through obscurity, it is going to find it. And so we do all that remediation of things that are overshared as well too. But even that, if you want to swap it out for Palo Alto Networks version or SentinelOne's version, swap that out for that. Of course, we connect every app. Even back in the search days, there were customers that were like, oh yeah, we were trying to migrate from this. At the time, I remember it was like Quip, and there were companies trying to migrate off Quip to like say Google Docs or Notion or something. It was like this made it easier to migrate, And so for me, it's always been about like that openness and letting like empowering customers to like not have lock-in, to own their data, use it how they want. We expose everything via API, and we actually treat now. When I talk about third-party non-Glean assistants or agent frameworks or something, we treat those as like peers to our first-party UI and assistant. We look at that as like, of course, you can't build any sort of platform or context layer or something without building the hero app yourself on top of that. But we don't look at that as a necessity. We have really large customers who like don't even know they're using Glean. They've just like totally built their own, I mean, the customer does, but the users in the company don't, because they've built their own UI or they connect it to another system, but it's just helping them govern it and make it work better or more efficiently.
Hello. Thank you for the interesting conversation. So, Tony, do you see increasing number of CIOs and CTOs who believe they can rebuild Glean in-house? And how do you win those deals over?
Yeah, it happens all the time, and I can think of some where it's happening now. It happens in different ways, and I would say, I don't know if you're asking because you're like, hey, what's a good way to approach enterprises? So I would answer from that point of view. One way is to let it go. So we, time and time again, like we know that we've got hundreds of engineers that have been working on this for 7 years and like have been going through all these problems, and then I see these things where they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have 3 people and we're gonna build it in 2 months and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we built the first version in 2019 with 3 people in 2 months, but like that's nowhere near where it is today. So there's a little bit of like, there's been many times where we see that and we just keep engaging, and we offer to help and we offer to show where it is and go back. But then the other thing, if you're in a thing where you sell to enterprises and stuff too, is like multi-channeling is really important. So I know multi-threading, I should say, where like sometimes you're working with a team and they see you as their competitor. Like they see you as like, I'm not going to have a job if the company buys this thing. And so then sometimes about finding the right champion who understands. I can think of one earlier customer where they had a team of like 20 people building like their internal knowledge platform and stuff like that. And at first the team was totally hostile to us. Like they wanted to, it was like really hard. But in the end, like we found the right champion, but they actually like repurposed a team to work on their product. Like instead of an internal tool, like now they're working on the product itself there, and the company was coming across saying, hey, we saved $12 million in salaries on this internal tool. And meanwhile, we bought this other tool. We bought Glean for a fraction of that, and it was kind of like win-win-win. So I really think, a lot of times I'll say, like, I recommend that, like, every company, you know what the value is that you're providing the world, you know what your product is, and you put your expertise and your resources into that, not to, like, reinventing internal tools that you could pull in. So I guess it's different every account and every customer is different, but those are the two major things is like, if you know what you've built and you're confident, let them try. And second, make sure you're multi-threading to the right champions and you don't stop at like a detractor.
Let's go to that side first. So we get some of them and then we'll come back.
Thanks for all your insights. It's great. My question is about enterprise companies and beyond Glean. A lot of companies, as you said, is experimenting today, giving them all the tools, GPT, Anthropic, Claude, whatever. Go try, figure it out. And every team, there's a lot of shadow AI, shadow IT, and they're burning so many tokens. And now IT has to go after them and say, what did you build? How did you build it? I'm literally doing MCP registry, agent registry, solving AI governance, things that we shouldn't be doing in the first place. Just wanted to get your thoughts on how you see this in the future. I mean, Glean does a great job. At least you have an admin console for tech, but I don't think the others do. So just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I see this all the time. I literally talked to a CIO yesterday who was saying exactly that. He's like, I have whole teams running this on like a credit card that was not designed for IT spend. Like he's like, I don't even know what's going on across all this. And if I'm looking at an industry trend, so one just validating this is completely the case everywhere. Like the AI sprawl and the shadow AI thing, like it's there. There's not a question of if it's there or not. The question is like, what is the next step and what is the way out of it? And I think there will be a way out of it. And what's happening right now is unprecedented level of security breaches. And a lot of this is from LLMs. They're like so good at finding vulnerabilities and everything. So we're seeing supply chain attacks everywhere. Like we're seeing like everything's getting popped all over the place, and I think that there's going to be some more. I would predict over the coming months or so, we'll see some really high profile like data breaches and things like that. And I think like I usually see in large enterprises that there's like the gas and the brakes. There's some gas in the business unit that's like just use AI for everything and don't worry about it and like buy everything. And the brakes is like the CIO, the CISO, and everything saying like, hey, but we have to do this safely. Like there's still some rules and things like that. And right now the gas is winning over the brakes, and I think we'll see enough. I think we're already starting to see a little bit with all the supply chain attacks and stuff, but I think there'll be some breaches that'll like do that. And yeah, somebody told me recently, something to the effect of like, well, I mean, yeah, you see it where you see where like the organizations are not always aligned at really big companies, and I remember one of them. He's just like, yeah, you win security, you win the enterprise, and like, yeah, lots of things will get through that business unit thing, but then the one that's going to stick and that's going to stay is the one that really gets a good buy-in from security.
Awesome, thank you. One quick 1 minute follow-up question to that. If you are an enterprise search company or a tool in selling, should you focus on business units or should you focus on security or?
You're asking like walk back to 2019 Glean, and what should you focus on?
Security versus business units, because like head of CRO is willing to pay the bill, but security is like, I'm going to block this because I don't think it's safe. So how do you equally partner with both parties and make sure your tool is right? You can't focus on everybody if you're a small startup, right?
I would say this. I would say look at your ICP. Is your ICP large enterprises? Is it Fortune 500? Is it at that level? Is it, I don't know, where would I draw the line? 5,000 plus person companies, that sort of thing. If that's it, you better focus on security. If your ICP is SMBs, ICP, ideal customer profile, is it small businesses? Is it 30-person startups and stuff like that? Just focus on the product and the business unit, and somewhere in between there's a trade-off. And so yeah, focus. I think focus has always really been important for us. Like we have this tendency to like go horizontal and try to do so many things, but yeah, it can be important to pick like what you're going to do where and decide like, are we more like sales-led growth, more of product-led growth? Are we more of like large enterprise or more of SMB, that kind of thing? So that would be how I'd look at it.
Good, thank you.
You were flattered by OpenAI, thinking of you earlier, but who do you see as competitors or anybody doing anything interesting in the space that you're in? I
mean, I love what we're building. So I want to make every part of it open and swappable. And I guess what would be what is a competitor would be like if there's not a perceived need for what we're offering and those sorts of things. I usually, when I talk to our account teams and things like that, it's like once I try it, like once I get to pilot phase and everything, I'm totally confident. Like the only thing that really scares me is when they don't try it, when we can't get through that like initial hurdle on security of connectivity or like actually getting the systems connected and stuff. That's the thing that scares me. So maybe yeah, to the extent that we're not able to tell the story or position why it's important. I know it's like a partial dodge on the question, but that'll be where I'll leave it.
All right, so that's all the time we have for questions. If you have a question, you can always come up to Tony. But yeah, let's give it up for Tony.
This was fun. These were really fun questions. Thank you.